Hello, I'm Ignacio Grifol, and I'm here with a very good professional wrestler. How are you?
I'm fantastic, my friend. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much. Well, it's an honor to be here with you, and I'm going to start with interview 101. Can you tell me your beginnings in the professional wrestling world?
Sure. My beginnings came around the age of 20, I think, is when I made the decision to become a professional wrestler. I had just recently failed out of college because, my heart wasn't in it. I didn't have any motivation to do the work. I didn't know why I was there.
Hmm,
And when I came back home and I sat down and, I had to make some really important life decisions about how I was going to become
hmm,
a successful adult in one way or another, wrestling was the only thing that I felt
yeah.
that I was willing to work for, or that I was willing to put in the time and the effort to be successful. So at 20, I decided to become a professional wrestler. I didn't sign up for wrestling school until 21, just because I wanted to, like, in my mind, I grew up on like late 80s, 90s WWF, so everyone was big, strong, burly men. So I was like, all right, well, if I commit myself to exercise in the gym for an entire year,
Hmm,
then I will spend the money it takes to join a professional wrestling school. Um, so I mean that's what I did. I did the work for a year. I kept it to the date, and then exactly a year later, I went and I joined a local professional wrestling schools with two guys not a lot
hmm,
of people know. Um, their names are Martial Law and Lovebug. They're in the early days of Chikara a little bit.
hmm,
Um, but for the most part, they're just two really good guys who taught me how to bump. They
hmm,
eventually introduced me to Mike Quackenbush, and that's really where I got the majority of my professional wrestling training from, between Mike Quackenbush,
hmm,
Cesaro. I trained with Steve Carino for a little while.
hmm.
Um, but that's how it got started. That's how I got the ball rolling.
Yes. Also, you started as create a wrestler. That is a character that the crowd can uh, propose you some kind of thing for your character. Can you tell me the different characters you have in Chikara?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started with Creator Wrestler, which was a fun idea, and especially as a young guy in wrestling, I was excited about it.
Hmm.
At that time, I was just excited about any gimmick that got
Hmm.
me in the doors at Chikara because that's where I wanted to be.
Hmm.
And so Creator Wrestler was the idea that was proposed to me. And so that's basically, it was almost like a contest come to life. I was like a human contest to where I'd go out and I'd wrestle a couple matches in this generic gear, and then fans would enter in ideas for what I could become.
Hmm.
Um, so the first year, I was creator wrestler for a few months, and then I became Moscow the Communist Bovine, who
Hmm.
was just a big, giant Russian cow. You can picture Barney the dinosaur, right, with his big giant head,
Yeah.
like a big giant costume is what I had to wear. So that's what I was the first year, and then Chikara ran on seasons. So when the season ended and it re-began as a new season, I was turned back into creator wrestler, keeping in video game fashion.
Hmm.
At this point, my stamina increased a little bit, and my strength and my speed, so I could wrestle a little better now.
Hmm.
And in this go around, there was another contest, and I became Ultimo Breakfast. It
Hmm.
was like a breakfast Spartan of some sort. I never really quite understood it. I just went and had fun with it. Figured that was the best I can do. This was the first game that I could actually wrestle a little bit in, which
Hmm.
was very exciting. And then that came to an end at the end of that season in 2008. And then in 2009, Creator Wrestler returned, and I became Dasher Hatfield.
Yeah.
And I wrestled as Dasher Hatfield from 2009 until 2019. So for a long
Yes.
time, 2020 maybe even.
Yes.
Um, so for 10 years, 10, 11 years, I was Dasher Hatfield.
Yes. Also, it's amazing because back in the early 2000, the independent circuit, it was very different from now, because now there's a lot of promotions and streaming services. Can you tell me how do you see the evolution of the independent circuit?
It just got better and better and better because if you figure when I started wrestling in 2006, right, that's really the boom of things like
Hmm.
YouTube and
Hmm.
internet services where as wrestlers we can watch and study without tape trading
Hmm.
wrestlers from all over the world,
Hmm.
right? So now I can just get on YouTube and watch Japanese wrestling and Mexican wrestling. And as the internet grows, wrestling grows, and wrestlers become better. So when I first met Mike Quackenbush, like that was one of the only avenues to learn all of these different styles of wrestling. Really, at that time, that was the only place to learn every different style of wrestling. And now you can learn any different style of wrestling pretty much at any wrestling school, thanks to the growth of the internet and YouTube and streaming services. Um, but it also just means it's more exposure. So the one thing that I really enjoy about it is the guys who are working the hardest and the guys who are hitting the road and traveling. Those are the guys you see popping up all over the place. So now more than ever, I feel like the guys who are putting in the work are the guys who are going to get the rewards at the end of the at the end of the rainbow.
Chikara, it was a very small promotion, but over the years they can afford a very good talent like Tito Santana, Scott Steiner, and many other legends like, for example, Manami Toyota, Joshi wrestlers. What can you tell me about the growth of Chikara over the years?
Well, from 2006, when I joined the company at training, till 2013, we did nothing but grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger every year. And it was the first company I felt to really embrace every different form of wrestling, right? So Mike Quackenbush was very good about bringing in Josie wrestlers and luchadors and carloads of guys from Canada. So this was the first place in the United States, whether big or small, that was really on a regular basis bringing in talent from all over the world. Nowadays, it's a very common thing, but this is definitely a trend that I believe was started at CHIKARA. So for me, not being educated on all of the different varieties of wrestling at the time, like my mind was just blown on a monthly basis as to who's this guy and who's this guy, and then I look up that company and this company, and all of a sudden I'm just getting bombarded with a world of wrestling that I never knew existed, and it was absolutely amazing. So it was a place I was very fortunate and lucky to be, to where I was surrounded with not only our in-house guys, but the people, the talent that was coming in from elsewhere. It was just some of the best talent that's ever graced a wrestling ring. So the fact that I was sharing locker rooms or rings with these people at such a young point in my career was lucky, very lucky, and something I'm very grateful for.
Yes, also it's amazing because Chikara usually rejected like the most mainstream things because sometimes you have just incredible, but under the Aldo Montoya character and X-Pac, but as 1, 2, 3 Kid. It's wonderful how they decide to reject the mainstream wrestlers.
Yeah, and I think it had a lot to do with nostalgia too. Like when we were kids, we didn't fall in love with Justin Credible and X-Pac. We fell in love with the 1, 2, 3 Kid, and we fell in love with Aldo Montoya. And as we grew older and their gimmicks changed, like we still appreciated and respected those guys, but that's not how our love for them originated. And CHIKARA is all about fun. So to relive those memories was great, and also I always felt that's how I knew we were really onto something special there, because guys like Sean Waltman were willing to, for the first time in a long time, be the 1, 2, 3 Kid. Like when Sean Waltman came in and was the 1, 2, 3 Kid, that was the first time he had done that since he had become 6 in the NWO. The same thing with Justin Credible. That was the first time he had wrestled as Aldo Montoya, the Portuguese Man of War, in a long, long time. So I always felt that the fact that those guys respected us enough to do that for us was a big deal. And it meant that we were building something fun and something people enjoyed and something that had some legs underneath it.
Yes, of course. Wrestling is a very, very fun entertainment. Also, well, as you said, you had the Dasher Hatfield character with Mark Angelosetti as the throwbacks. What can you tell me about your time as a tag team wrestler?
I love tag team wrestling. It's always been one of my favorite things as a kid growing up. I was a big fan of obviously Brett and the Anvil and Sean and Marty and the Bulldogs. So tag team wrestling for me was always something I definitely wanted to do. And even when I first started in wrestling before my CHIKARA days, I trained with a cousin of mine who I grew up with, and we loved wrestling. And so we were a tag team too. So in CHIKARA, I was a tag team, and even kind of on the side, I was doing some tag team wrestling as well. So it just gives you different elements of storytelling to play with. When you have 4 characters involved, there's just more fun that you can have. There's more options. There's more almost tools on your tool belt to use. So it definitely gives you some choices to make that you don't have just in a singles match. And not to mention, if you get tired, you can tag out and take a little break. That's always nice too.
Of course. That's the good thing of tactic wrestling.
Yeah.
Yes. Also, well, Chikara also has one of the biggest storylines in professional wrestling when Chikara closed down and several promotions appeared like wrestling is fun and wrestling is what can you and suddenly Chikara came out of nowhere. What can you tell me about this time the Chikara closing down, wrestling is fun and appear from nowhere?
For me, like when the story was first proposed to me, like I was just really sad
Yeah.
because when it was first told to us, it was like, hey, when we do this, we're taking a year off, like
Hmm.
nothing for a year. Like, yeah, there's all the little wrestling is companies, but they're kind of sporadic. But at that time, that locker room was such a family and a brotherhood
Hmm.
or a sisterhood or whatever. And I had friends that were from all over the world. Like we had regular guys coming down from Canada and guys coming up from the South and guys coming from the Midwest. So we all kind of knew that without Chikara, we weren't going to be together for a long time.
Yes.
So during that time, I remember like like our group chats and stuff were just like, damn, I miss you guys. Like
Yes.
we were all together so much and we bonded so much and we were building such a beautiful thing that to kind of slam the brakes on it was really sad for a lot of us. I think we all believed and trusted in Quack's storytelling.
Hmm.
So we were like, hey, if this is what he thinks is going to work, like we're on board. Like he's gotten us this far. He's gotten us to this point. But it's just sad that you're not going to see your friends for 12 months. And
Yes.
that really sucks.
Yes, no, but in fact, the most amazing thing is that nobody expecting that. I mean, no rumors, not information leaked to these seats. It was amazing.
Yeah, well, we all bit into, like Chikara was as special as it was because we kept information so closely inside.
Hmm.
Like if you want to surprise people, you can't leak
Hmm.
people out. And to Quack's defense a little bit, like if there were guys around that he felt were leaking things, like they didn't stay around very long.
Yes.
Like he was a guy who liked to keep his secrets in house. And so if we felt storylines were leaking or we found out that they were, those guys kind of went away because that's not what we were all about. And so when that shutdown happened, like even I was on commentary and I kind of knew it was going to happen, but I didn't have details. He's like, just go out there and call what you see. Um, so it was important, and we all kind of believed that that's what made us magical and special was that what we knew was what we knew, and we were inside the bubble, and everyone else was on the outside just waiting to find out.
Hmm.
So if we were to leak those things, like
Yeah.
they would just ruin the fun and ruin the surprise.
Yeah. Also, Chikara held one of the biggest tournaments in the independent, the King of Trios, and recently a lot of promotions have trios like first Lucha Underground, New Japan, Ring of Honor, now All Elite. What can you tell me about the? Do you think that the United States wrestling is used to work with trios?
Do I think United States wrestling is used to working with trios?
Yes, in the trios formula.
I think we've gotten better at it, and again, a big part of thanks to Chikara. Chikara really even made its name before my time of traveling six mans.
Hmm.
Like all the guys who came before me, your Hollowicked, your Icaruses, your Jigsaws, your Eddie Kingstons, Quack, Larry Sweeney,
Yeah.
Vin Gerard, the Colony. These guys used to get six guys in a car and travel to your IWA Mid South and all over the United States. And that's how they kind of made a name for Chikara because they had this six-man match that they practiced a million times and it was amazing. So they would go into these places that had never seen anything like that and they would just wow the crowd. And that would lure fans into Chikara. And it was really, in my mind, to my knowledge, the first big jump point for Chikara bringing in fans was that they could pull off these amazing six-mans. So I do think that Chikara is definitely responsible for the fact that here in the United States we can run a hell of a six-man now.
Hmm.
Because before that time it wasn't a real common thing. And thanks to King of Trios and thanks to the success of King of Trios, like there's six-mans on almost every show I'm on nowadays. Sometimes just to get all your buddies on the show, but it is still a fine art to put them together. Like I find when I'm in them, a lot of times I'm the guy, and I've been a part of every King of Trios weekend from the inaugural one, not in every tournament, but a part of the weekend in one way or another. And I've listened to some of the best matchmakers put these things together, and I've learned a lot. So a lot of times in the six-man, I find I'm almost speaking another language when I'm putting these matches together. But it is a whole lot of fun, and again, just more pieces of the puzzle make it a whole lot more fun. It gives you a lot more to play with.
Yeah. Well, as Hatfield, you have a very high-profile matches. For example, you wrestled Eddie Kingston for the Grand Championship. You wrestled the Young Bucks for the Campeonatos de Parejas, and of course, you have the ladder match. What can you tell me? Which is your favorite moment in your Chikara career?
My favorite moment in my Chikara career is probably, this is a weird answer, but probably the day I lost my mask. Like, that is something that I wanted to happen for so long.
Yes.
And I never felt like, again, I wrestled some huge name guys, Champa and the Young Bucks, like you said, Eddie Kingston, Moose, all these guys in the Chikara ring, El Generico. And there's a pressure that goes about that. But going into that mask match was the most pressure I ever felt for a few reasons. One, because I knew it really was the jumpstart of a brand new beginning for me, and I needed it to get off on a good step. Like, if we went out there and had a stinker, nobody would care what I was doing next. So I really needed that match to be fantastic, and nothing short of fantastic. And then I was going in there with a rookie, a guy who had less than 12 months in ring. You know, he'd been training over a year, but he's only debuted at that point maybe 9-10 months. So this is a match that I need to put together, that I need to control while we're in the ring, and all the responsibility on my future was on that match. So the fact that the match went off the way that it did, and it got the response that it did, and I was as happy with it as I was, because I do find I'm my own biggest critic. Like, I can have a really good match, but still find 10 things to nitpick about. I was really excited about. So as far as like just being proud, that was probably the proudest I ever was walking into a locker room.
Yeah. Of course, you are talking about your match with Boomer Hatfield, right?
Yeah, in Chicago, May 2018.
Yes. Yes, of course. No, it's well, it's weird because most wrestlers doesn't want to take their mask off.
Yeah, and for me, it was like I loved being Dasher Hatfield for a long time, and then when it just kind of got repetitive and boring, and just being a babyface kind of got repetitive and boring,
Yes.
I wanted to try, the other side of wrestling and challenge myself in that way. But I always felt that Dasher Hatfield was such a pure good character
Yeah.
that I didn't want to be a bad guy Dasher Hatfield. So like in my mind, once this came off, it had to be everything brand new. But again, working for a promoter like Mike Quackenbush, sometimes it's very much give and take, because he can be stubborn in his ways, and when you have such a creative mind like he does, it's difficult to give in to other people's opinions and their choices. So it's definitely something I had to fight for. And when he saw how dedicated I was to it, he definitely gave in and kind of let me have my way a little bit and run with it. Yeah, it was my biggest kicker when the company went under recently, is because the story I had going for that upcoming year was amazing, and it was the most excited I had been about wrestling ever. And I've been pretty excited about some of the stuff I've done, but I was really pumped for what was coming up for the next year. But we move on.
Yes. Also, one weird question, because in the storyline, Boomer Hatfield was your son. Can you say me why the name Boomer? Boomer looks more like your dad, not like your son. Your son.
He looks like my dad.
Boomer.
Little.
Yes, because the boom generation.
Oh, okay. I don't think that's what the name. I think the name came from like a baseball nickname, like he booms the ball. Yeah. I think that nickname and Boomer getting his name all kind of happened at the same time. I got you though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to name him Slugger, but they liked Boomer better.
This is because the first time I hear Boomer, I thought about a very old man say, "Oh yeah," yelling to the clouds.
We love Donald Trump.
Yes. Also, I wanted to talk about your tag team partner, Mark Angelosetti, because he was the Grand Champion. You were the interim champion. You defeated him, and suddenly he disappeared. What happened to him? He retired or something?
Yeah, it's one of those things in wrestling, and I give him a lot of respect for it. A lot of guys say it, but they don't mean it, or then they hang around. But he said, "When I'm done having fun wrestling, I'm done wrestling." And I think his body was catching up. I think his body was beat up because Mark always gives 120%.
Yes.
He never holds back. He never, his own well-being was never on his own brain. So I think it was the fun was outweighed by the pain that his body was in, and he said, "I'm done." And a lot of people put a lot of pressure on him not to be done, and even for months after that, we put a lot of pressure on him to come back. And the whole time he was just like, "Nope, I said I was done, and I'm done." And a lot of guys don't do that. A lot of guys leave and come back and leave and come back and leave and come back. And so I give him a lot of credit, and I felt like we had a heck of a story we could have told if he came back, but I respected his wishes, and he wanted to be done wrestling, and he was done. I mean, it's the world of wrestling, so you never know. He might come back one day.
Maybe.
But I mean, we're now 2 years later, and still no signs of him.
Yes. Also, it's sad because several of the top talent of Chikara never make it to the big stage. Like, for example, Mark Angelosetti, but also Jigsaw or Ultramantis Black, Juan Francisco de Coronado. It's weird because he's like a very big school, a factory of wrestlers, but they never do it to the next level. Can you tell me is something, I don't know, a family sense of the promotion?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could ever think of was just that all of these guys you mentioned, all with the exception of Juan Francisco, all masks and all very larger than life characters. So most of, if you watch WWE, or especially WWE, they want real life. Like, they want the fights to look like real life. They want the fighters to be believable. They don't want cartoony character Ultra Mantis guy, right? They're not going to have an invisible grenade in their match. So I do feel like for the people of that mindset that think wrestling needs to be the serious, real fighter guy thing, they look down on what we made, and it's not exactly their cup of tea. And you think of a lot of the guys who did have success coming out of Chikara, right? It's your Drew Gulaks and it's your Cesaros, and it's those guys who look and feel like real life fighters. So I mean, I always thought that was kind of the knock on us, which I understood, and I still was happy to choose the side I chose because I really enjoyed wrestling for Chikara for all those years. Like, what we made was different, and in my mind, it was special. As a teenager, I was super into ECW and the camaraderie and the brotherhood that built that company, right? It was wrestlers who depended on each other to drive the truck, to print the T-shirts, to put up the ring, to book the buildings. They really depended on one another, and in wrestling, that was my goal, was to find that special thing that was changing the world of wrestling. And to me, that's still a box I happily check. Like, the impact Chikara had on the entire world of wrestling is undeniable in my mind. So I do feel that we did that for our time period. We were special, and we changed what everybody else was doing. So that was a goal of mine that I can check off. Nowadays, now that that's no longer there, like, nowadays I do want to wrestle for a bigger company. That is the goal now. And I'm going to keep busting my tail. I work as hard as anybody else out there, if not harder, and that's what I'm going to keep doing until I can't do it anymore or I get what I want.
Yes. Well, right now we are in the dangerous territory of the interview. As you know, this year we have the Speaking Out movement, where a lot of female wrestlers speak their bad situation in the wrestling industry, and one of the promotions that shut it down was Chikara. Mike Quackenbush was accused of, I think that, well, homophobic rants, I remember. What can you tell me about this period?
I mean, for the most part, I can just really speak for myself.
Yes.
Like, I was a guy who my name didn't come up in any of it because I'm a professional from top to bottom. I'm a proud father. I'm a husband, a loyal husband, and I go to wrestling shows. I work hard. I go to training, but that's it. Like, I mean, it's the world of wrestling. So yeah, there's pretty girls all over the place. But for me, I'm a faithful husband. So I was lucky enough to have something outside of wrestling to keep my focus there.
Yes.
So you won't find my name coming up, which is a good thing. Everything else that kind of came up was most of it a surprise to me. A lot of it, the stuff that did come out in-house in Chikara, was dealt with maybe months or years beforehand, where people were fired or let go. So a lot of that stuff that came up was kind of older news. that just it all kind of came back at once,
Yes.
and it really sunk the ship. But yeah, other than that, some of the stuff was a surprise to me. And again, I'm just going to speak for myself.
Yeah.
You know, responsible, grown, adult man who knows right from wrong.
Yes. No, in fact, a lot of people were very surprised for the accusation. This is very related with the cancel culture because several years ago, Joey Styles, if you remember, made a comment during a promo. They said,
Yep.
"Oh, you are a pretty girl," and he emulated that Donald Trump, and he was
Yep.
fired from several promotions. Chikara was one of them. What do you think about the cancel culture of today?
I just think you got to be very careful with it.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like some people did terrible things and they deserve to be gone and out of wrestling forever.
Hmm.
But then sometimes I feel like now on the wrestler side of it, the wrestlers are afraid to put pretty much anything on Twitter because there are people on there who look for just about anything to twist and jump on you for. And like almost like they're looking for their badge of honor to now, you know, like say, hey, I got this guy out of wrestling. Like I've seen some people get accused of some pretty silly things that aren't really that bad. But again, some of speaking out and cancel culture is good. If there's, you know, people sexually pushing themselves on anybody, you should go away. Like you don't get the right to do that. Especially people talking to younger girls. Go away. You shouldn't be able to do that either. So parts of it were good, but then again, I feel like some people got a little popularity from calling people out. So then people just started like pointing fingers all over the place. But like I had people jumping all over me on Twitter for something, and it was just like that really wasn't that bad. So again, it's just a fine line of weeding out people who really don't belong. But then other than that, sometimes it gets a little crazy.
Yes.
But again, I just don't like that how, you know, on a wrestler side, everybody's super on edge. Like I can't do anything. I can't say anything. Like I don't know. To me, and again, maybe it goes back to like my early '90s love of wrestling, where there were good guys and bad guys. Like bad guys are few and far. A good heel nowadays, like you got like MJF and MJF. That's like about it. Like he's the only guy who's figured out how to walk this line of I can still be nasty, but not have people call me a racist or a sexist or homophobic or all of these other things. And there are ways to be a bad guy without being those things, but it's a real fine line to walk in. People are just too afraid to walk that line nowadays. And like, so now it's just like, I feel like every match I see is just like two neutral dudes, not a good guy, not a bad guy. And there's amazing wrestling going on, right? Fantastic. You got some fantastic pure wrestling and catch can and fantastic high flyers and all of this amazing stuff. But at the same time, it's like, I miss that battle of good and evil.
Yes. Well, do you think that Chikara maybe will come back in the future?
I don't see how. So no, in my mind, it's done. I know personally, I'm done with the company. If it does come back, like I won't be headed back there. Yeah, so in my mind, no.
Okay. Well, also, one thing that makes a lot of fans is that other wrestlers from Chikara, they keep their name. They use, for example, Boomer Hatfield use the same name, but you change your name to a very good professional wrestler. Can you tell me why this name change?
Yeah, my name change actually kind of had like really nothing to do with the company shutdown. I didn't do it till quite a bit after the company shut down, but for me it was forever. Even as Dasher Hatfield, even when I became the champion and I was having very good matches, or before I was the champion, I was having good matches. I never got called a very good wrestler. It was always like, oh, this guy's underrated. I would hear that a lot. And so one day, like, especially when I was trying to branch out and get a little spotlight just on me as an individual, as an independent wrestler, not inside that CHIKARA bubble for the first time, I felt like I'll just call myself a very good wrestler, a very good professional wrestler. And if that's my name, then people have no choice but to call me a very good professional wrestler.
Yes.
You can't call me underrated. My name is a very good professional wrestler. And so that's where I got the idea. And I feel like just that little switch, and like commentary, Twitter, whoever's talking about me in wrestling, they're like, oh, he's a very good wrestler. Like, he lives up to that name. Like, that's his name, but he's also that. So I feel like my little trick worked maybe a little bit. People
Yes,
actually believe I'm a pretty good wrestler nowadays.
yes. In fact, when I told my friends that I'm going to interview you, I said I'm going to interview a wrestler. He's very well. Yes, he's a very good professional wrestler. Yes, yes,
Yeah. And it's always funny because people then ask me, like commentary, they ask me like you do. They're like, well, what do we call you? I'm like, you call me a very good professional wrestler.
yes,
So on commentary, they say the whole thing every time.
yes,
And it's quite fun to hear. I enjoy it.
yes. I ask you the today. I mean, how should I call you, Mr. Wrestler or Mr. I don't know, Mr. Very Good,
Yeah.
Mr. Very Good
But so
professional
it's a
wrestler.
lot of fun. And for me, it's something different. Um, I, I felt great. Like, unfortunately, with COVID and everything that's going on, I think I debuted as a very good professional wrestler back in August.
Hmm.
And so I got to wrestle like August to November, and then everything kind of
Yes.
shut down again. And I felt like I was having a lot of success and having a lot of really fun matches.
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting, waiting for now, maybe January, February, March, for everything to open back up again
Of course.
and start wrestling on a regular basis again.
Of course. But also you won the ECWA Super 8 tournament that is a very unknown tournament, but it's a very prestigious one because it has
Yeah, I
a...
got my big trophy right there. You see my big trophy?
Oh my God, yes, it's right, the trophy.
Yeah, it's big. It's like 4.5 feet tall.
Yes, yes. No, it's pretty big. Can you tell me about the tournament? Because it's not a very common tournament. It's not like the, I don't know, the G1 Climax, but it has a very selected choice of champions.
Yeah, if you go back and look at the history of the ECW Super 8, it is almost every amazing wrestler that's ever wrestled the independents in the United States.
Hmm.
Just about anybody who's wrestled it, and even less people have won it.
Hmm.
So I got originally the Super 8 was supposed to take place back in March,
Hmm.
and then COVID moved it to July, and then it got moved again to September. But even in like January, when I got a spot in the tournament, I was honored just to have a spot in the tournament.
Hmm.
Like that alone for me was like, hey, wrestling in the ECWA Super 8 is not, nothing. That's a big deal. And again, in ECWA is not the most notorious company, but that tournament in the United States is. Like that's the biggest thing they do all year long. It's just historic. I want to say there's 20 plus tournaments a year been going on now. So then when I got there and literally had no idea I was winning it, and then to win it, like the most emotional day of my life. And then like I get in the back and I'm kind of letting it all absorb in. That I don't think I was supposed to win it. I think I performed very well in the first two rounds, and then the decision was made at that point that I was the winner. But so I was kind of on a little bit of a high of having these really good matches, and then I got in the back and I checked my cell phone, and my wife had sent me a video of my children watching it on IWTV.
Oh.
And they're jumping up and down and they're cheering, and I'm just like, at this point, crying, and I'm an emotional mess. That at that point, that's been the biggest day of my wrestling career to win the ECWA Super 8, and then the fact that through the magic of IWTV, my kids were at home. They couldn't come because of COVID. I probably would have brought them anyway because I didn't know I was winning, but they were at home watching, and then so that's something that they'll remember forever was Daddy winning this big trophy, whether they ever realized how important it was or not. That that I got to share that moment with them, thanks to streaming services and IWTV. Thank you, Jerry.
Would you like to your children to follow your step as a professional wrestler?
If that's like I always said I'm gonna never be that parent to make my kids do anything. I mean, outside of be decent people. But like life is in my mind, parenthood is about finding what they like to do and what their talents are and what they're interested in, and trying to feed that as much as possible. So like right now, my daughter's a competitive gymnast. She's 7, and she just won her first overall meet like a week and a half ago. And she works her butt off, man. She's a hardworking little girl, strong as an ox too. Those little gymnastic girls are strong. So, if she ever did to become a professional wrestler, she'd be a great one. Just because gymnastics is going to have her in incredible shape, and it makes her super coachable. Like I'll teach her some lucha on her trampoline, and she picks up on it like this, like little things like, hey, don't put your hand here, or turn your hand this way, or when you jump up, put your leg here. And she listens the first time you teach her. So if she ever did decide that this is a career she'd want, Daddy wouldn't tell her no, and I would help her as much as possible. Now my little guy, he's 4, and wrestling's all he wants to do. Like we don't ever watch wrestling in this house because the second I turn it on, it's Daddy, let's wrestle. We don't get to watch it. We don't get to sit down and watch. It'll still be on the TV, but we have a huge, gigantic couch upstairs, and immediately it's Daddy, I'm Vader. Who are you? And then we play wrestling for the next hour. But so is it in his future? Maybe. I ask my daughter every once in a while, and she goes, I don't know. I'll think about it. But I think I want to be what she want to be now. She wants to be an archaeologist or a scientist or a baker. So those are her ideas right now.
She can be all of them. She can be the archaeologist, baker, wrestler.
It'd be amazing, right? It would be absolutely amazing.
Yes.
But she honestly she would be a great professional wrestler if she ever decided that's what she wanted to do.
Right. Also,
I don't know how my wife would feel about that. I don't think my wife would like it at all.
well,
they got to get by mommy first.
Nice. Well, we're right now in the end of the interview. Several years ago, there are 3 men that came to the United States. The White Wolf House. Do you remember? It was
Kid.
Aquí, el niño anónimo, Rod Zayas, and Carlos Romo. Do you met him? What can you tell me about meeting them?
Kind of the same thing. Like the first time I met all the fellows who came over from England, your Pete Dunne types. Like you could tell there was something special about them. Literally, like they come over, they're young guys, and at the time, like Pete Dunne looks great now, but all of those guys at the time, they don't look like big, beefy professional wrestlers, but their commitment is amazing. Like to travel all the way over here, and knowing the way CHIKARA works, they probably paid for themselves to fly over here just to be seen. And it worked out wonders for them, especially kid's doing amazing things right now.
Yes.
But just young, hungry guys who you can tell how hard they work by the way that they wrestle. A lot of guys, that's my biggest thing I tell the younger guys. I said, guys, you want to earn respect in this business, you get better every time somebody wants to see you. You see a guy this month, make sure you're better next month when you see him, and they'll notice that, whether you're better at talking, whether you look better, whether your gear looks better, whether you're better in the ring, whatever it is, just constantly improve, and people will notice that. And those guys, at such a young age, were so clean and polished and different that you just knew the amount of work that they were putting in back at home. And like again, in the sacrifice to fly yourself over here for an opportunity like that just shows your commitment and your dedication.
Yes. Also, well, right now in the United States, there is the pandemic and there is not that much of independent events. What can you tell me about the current state of the independent wrestling, and what are your objetivos? Pardon. What are your next goals for the next year?
So right now, the state of independent wrestling is pretty boring because there's not a whole lot going on, and what is going on isn't really in front of a lot of people or any people. Sometimes it's just in an empty room. So it's pretty boring. It's just a lot of people really like hungry people still looking to try to get better and still trying to perform. So you got some great talent performing in front of not a lot of people. So you got AEW who's still running and on TV, and WWE who runs regularly, but the independents, those spots right now you got a lot of people fighting after a very little amount of spots. So if you get a spot on a card, appreciate it because there's not a whole lot of spots out there. You still have some schools that are training, and so people are putting in work that way. My goal for the next year is to just wrestle, and it kind of was my goal for last year too, but COVID getting in the way a little bit, but is to wrestle all of the best talent in the world. Like that's why I want to wrestle. Like I want to wrestle all the guys who can get in the ring and just go for 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes. All those guys that, the people on Twitter, the people anywhere else say, these are the best guys ever. This guy. Like, I want to wrestle and outperform all of those guys. So that's my goal. So I'm working my tail off. I'm in the best shape of my life. We've got a training center about 20, 25 minutes down the road. So I'm putting in all that work I can and doing everything I can to just kind of open those doors for myself. So end goal 2021, like I want a wrestling contract. At my age, it's all or nothing at this point.
Yes.
So my goal is to wrestle my tail off till somebody decides to pay me some money to do it. That would be really nice.
Yes. Can you tell me what's your age? How old are you?
I'm 37.
I'm 37.
Yeah, so I'm getting up there. 40's creeping up quick, man.
Yes. Yes, no, it's true. It's true. You are a true veteran in the business.
Yeah, I've been wrestling 15 years. So again, I started training at 21. I debuted at 22,
Yes.
and 15 years flew by like that.
Yes. Well, at least you can have the storyline where your kids can attack Boomer Hatfield. No, you are not the real son of my father. I'm the real son.
They've already got their first angle worked into the business.
Yes, yes. You are not his son. I'm the crazy Baker archaeologist wrestler.
There you go. It's funny, my little guy, he struggles with learning a very good professional wrestler. So when he wants to be me when we wrestle, he goes, Dad, I'm going to be the greatest wrestler ever. And I'm like, that's not Daddy, bud, but you can keep calling me that. It sounds good.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, he thinks that's my name, the greatest wrestler ever. I'm like, maybe one day that'll be my name. It can evolve. After I pass very good, I can be great, and then maybe one day very great, and then the greatest wrestler ever. It'll evolve.
Nice. And well, the last question is, well, right now is Christmas. Is Christmas. How is the Christmas in the United States with the pandemic? Is different? Is weird? Or because I see the Christmas tree right behind you.
Yeah, that's my little man cave sports Christmas tree. We got our big one upstairs. That's our little downstairs one. Well, I'll start with Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was really weird because usually we get together with my in-laws, all their family, and it's like 40 people.
Yes.
But instead, it got that 40 people got broke up into like 3 different separate little Thanksgivings,
Yes.
and so it was just like
Yeah.
8 or 9 of us. So Christmas we don't know yet because they all insist that no, we're getting together no matter what. We're getting together no matter what. So
Yeah.
Christmas may be the same. For us, we did a lot more online shopping this year, and we did a lot more shopping from small businesses instead of like Target or Amazon.
Yeah.
We tried to focus on small businesses and supporting people who really need the money right now. So shopping was a little different in that sense.
Yes.
But other than that, like the kids are just as excited.
Hmm.
As of right now, the plans are still the family's going to get together, and it is kind of a risk because COVID is going crazy right now. The numbers are way up. But I think everyone's kind of on board where it's like, hey, like we want to take the risk. But
Yes.
we'll see as time gets closer and Christmas arrives. That may change, but for right now, the plan is everyone's getting together.
Yes. No, in fact, I also I celebrate Thanksgiving because my aunt is from Colorado, and
Okay.
it's pretty weird because only 6 people, and well, we cut the turkey, but it was pretty weird because no, just 6 people for
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
not that you used to getting together with a big group of people.
Yes.
You see everybody like for here, there's football on all day, so like all the dads go in one room and we drink beer and watch football, and all the moms they go in another room and they start Black Friday shopping. They get the
Yes.
coupons out. They start planning out where they're going to go shopping the next day. But yeah, none of that this year. Just kind of ate and hung out a little bit and went home.
Well, that's the whole interview. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a very good Christmas.
I hope you have a good Christmas too, my friend. Thanks for
Yes.
having me.
Yes. One last thing. Can you say hello to your fans in Spain?
Yeah, I want to say hello to my fans in Spain. I want to come to Spain and wrestle for my fans in Spain. That's what I want to do. I've been over to Europe, but never to Spain. So, Spain promoters, I'm a very good professional wrestler. I'll come there. I will wrestle my tail off for you. I'll give you some of the best matches I'm capable of having. But yeah, what's up, Spain wrestling fans? I'm a very good professional wrestler.
Great.